All right. So heading to the polls, Mark Carney calls April 28th election. So there he is, the Canadian Mr. Burns, the globalist hobgoblin, Mark Carney, the man who just seems incapable of ever telling the truth. The guy who just parachuted back into Canada after living abroad for, most of his adult life, it seems. Parachuted in with the backing of Trudeau's people, Gerald Butts and Katie Telford, fell into the loving arms of the Canadian media, and essentially was just declared prime minister. I mean, there was, I guess you could call it a leadership race. They kicked out the only two people, Chandra Arya and Ruby Dalla, who would have asked him any questions, who would have pushed him at all, demanded anything from him. They kicked them out of the race. So then the ones that were left over just kind of lay down. They didn't do anything. They didn't challenge him, nothing. They weren't even trying to win, obviously. The whole thing was a charade. After having advised Justin Trudeau for the last 5 years, because he's an economic genius, right? So after being a big part of what made Justin Trudeau so unpopular, he just parachutes back in, and all of a sudden, whoa, he's the prime minister. Kind of doesn't seem fair. Nobody's ever voted for the guy outside of the very, very sketchy Liberal leadership race. I mean, there has been in 1984, Turner was not a member of Parliament when he became prime minister, when he succeeded, essentially replaced Pierre Elliott Trudeau. But he at least had been an MP before. He was elected in 1976. Carney, nothing. He just shows up out of nowhere and he's just anointed. The media sees, hey, this guy's our meal ticket. We like him. And we just hate conservatives anyway. We hate Pierre anyway. And then we're just stuck with this. And now we have an election, though. Now we have an election. He called it pretty quickly. And that's the only thing that made sense, because he would know, nobody would know better than him, that his policies, the things he's going to inflict on Canada, are not going to make Canadians' lives better. Nobody knows that better than him. And he accepts that. He accepts that. Take a look at his book. He accepts that. So the longer it goes, the worse it is for him. So you got to strike while the iron's hot, and while people are still don't really know who he is. Laurie Goldstein here. Carney's theft of Poilievre's platform has turned into a farce. It is a farce. The Liberals' economic record while in power indicates they don't believe in what they're promising and will abandon most, if not all of it, if reelected. Don't forget, Carney has been advising Trudeau on everything, on the Liberals' policies, since at least 2020. I'm guessing it maybe in a more informal way before that, but probably no less of an influential way. I mean, just look at this guy. He should be like hanging from the side of a cathedral. He's a gargoyle. He's a globalist gargoyle. If Mark Carney and the Liberals are best equipped to take on U.S. President Donald Trump in a tariff war, why have they stolen their election platform from Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives? It's because they think the public is stupid. That's why. This ongoing theft has reached farcical levels, given that the Liberals' economic record of their last 10 years in power, as well as Carney's own statements before entering politics, indicate they don't believe in what they're promising and will abandon most, if not all, if reelected. They've done it before. The latest example of the Carney Liberals' pilfering of the promises of the Poilievre Conservatives occurred late last week when Carney announced his government would cut the GST for first-time home buyers of new or substantially renovated homes valued at under $1 million, savings up to $50,000. Poilievre promised that in October 2024, pledging, you will pay no GST on new homes under $1 million, saving up to $50,000. Of course, we've also got, does it mention it in here? Oh, yes. Claiming he will scrap Trudeau's consumer carbon tax, another position he stole from Poilievre, but keep Trudeau's industrial carbon tax, which will raise consumer prices instead of the taxes on the... So now Poilievre wants to get rid of the industrial taxes as well. Carney promises the Liberals won't go ahead with increases to the capital gains tax they announced in their April 2024 budget. Increases Poilievre opposed from the start. Yeah, so they're just stealing. They're trying to trick. They're trying to trick Canadians. Is it working? It's working to some extent. But what I don't buy is, and let's grab Mark Carney here. Actually, this is a good one. This is a good one. So this tweet here is from this guy in the black hard hat, and he's saying, "I'm the guy in the black hard hat. I didn't want to be there. I vowed not to shake his hand. I told the organizers that I wouldn't." Apparently, he's gained like tens of thousands of followers, by the way, since this. But Carney, he's stealing conservative policy in a very cynical way. This is all exactly the opposite of what he advised Trudeau on, what he'd been advising Trudeau on for years now, right? The stuff that, like the consumer carbon tax. Do you remember Mark Holland in Parliament talking about how telling Canadian children that if they went on a road trip with their parents, that the world was going to burn? That was going to end the world, end civilization, right? Apparently, I mean, we had to have this, or else the world was going to be destroyed. There's going to be an apocalypse, maybe tomorrow. Who knows? The increase in the capital gains tax. I mean, that was only greedy billionaires or something would not want. All of a sudden, it's great. It also shows you here that there's no principles involved, right? No, the modern left now, there's no principles, right? They will go from something. If you were not in support of the capital gains hike, you were a fascist. Now, immediately, Carney's doing it. Great, wonderful, everything's perfect. Wow, he's awesome. He understands economics, right? The consumer carbon tax. If you're against that, fascist. You want the world to end. You're a conspiracy theorist, blah, 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 blah. Carney does it. Wonderful. Great. This is the perfect thing. What a great guy he is. There's no principles whatsoever involved here. They don't care. It's just whatever the teleprompter tells them. Whatever is read to them off a teleprompter on TV, that's the thing now. It's just amazing, right? It's just amazing. They can support the thing. Today, they can support the thing that they called somebody fascist for supporting yesterday, and just no big deal. It just seems like zombie-like behavior, doesn't it? By the way, all the things he's reversing, it seems pretty obvious that these were Carney's ideas, that Trudeau was leaning on Carney, right? Chrystia Freeland was a finance minister, but her previous experience was she was a journalist. Obviously, he was listening to Mark Carney. That's who his inspiration was. That's who his mentor was. So now he's reversing the things that he told Trudeau to do and being called a hero for it. But here's the thing. Make no mistake, Carney can temporarily pause the consumer carbon tax, and I believe that's all that it is. But his life work is net zero, right? He's carbon obsessed. He has been forever. That's not going away. So all that's happening here is a bait and switch. A bait and switch. And these guys know it. These guys who didn't want to shake his hand. Here's his book. So this is just the preface, right? This is just the introduction. And he didn't write this 20 years ago. He wrote this a few years ago. You think he's changed his mind on all of this? I want to show you something. I wrote values because I believed even before COVID struck that we needed radical changes to build a better world for all. Well, I thought, what about Canada? Do you think he still is worried about the world, or is he worried about Canada? That's the thing with the globalists, right? They're not really into nations, right? They're not really into even patriotism. Aside from all this elbows up, Team Canada bullshit, he doesn't believe any of that. He's barely lived in Canada in his adult life. We need radical changes to build a better world for all. Well, with this election, I kind of feel like we're mostly just pretty much interested in Canada, right? We kind of just want to worry about Canada, really. Let's see. Canada pledges $100 million for Palestinians in Gaza. He's already prime minister at this point. See, this is being concerned about the world, not Canada. Here, he was already the leader of the Liberal Party. You think they didn't put this stuff past him? $3.8 million for a mountain warfare ski school maintenance building in Lebanon. Really? Does it really cost $3.8 million for a maintenance building in Lebanon? I don't know. And by the way, Lebanese Armed Forces mountain warfare ski school is none of Canada's business. Here, $84 million in humanitarian aid, which this is also with Mark Carney as the leader of the Liberal Party, $84 million in humanitarian aid to Syria. Mark Carney's already the leader of the Liberal Party by now. 84 billion in humanitarian aid to Syria. Is he aware that Syria is run by jihadis? It should say 84 million in jihadi money. Just jihadi aid. It should just say that. So when he's talking about, I mean, none of that's going to change. All the crazy spending, the global affairs kind of stuff, none of that's going to change. Again, he's most concerned with building a better world for all. I'd really prefer he just focused on Canadians. I'm also not wild about this radical changes. So radical changes means radical left changes. Have we had enough of the radical left in Canada yet? Have we had enough of that? Governments need to set the terms for and incentivize private investment in the net zero transition. This is all sounding very central planning stuff. This is not free market stuff. This is not stuff that's going to make companies more competitive. Credible and predictable government climate policies encourage investors to pour in money in anticipation of this transition. Really? Really? Because it hasn't, Trudeau's been doing all the stuff you wanted, and we haven't seen money pour into Canada. We've seen the opposite, $500 billion go down south. 4 of Canada's biggest banks leave Mark Carney-led climate initiative. It's fallen apart. It's falling apart. But he's running an election to stay prime minister as this economic genius who's this, going to lead us into the future. His own crowning achievement, his net zero achievement had already fallen apart. It'd be nice if maybe the CBC Power Politics panel maybe mention some of this stuff. His crowning achievement has fallen apart. Maybe that's what this is about. Maybe he's seen his life work, his crowning achievement fall to pieces, and it's humiliating for him. And he wants to now use Canada to try and get that back again. Use Canada as his little net zero laboratory. Not so little net zero laboratory. So Carney has stolen a lot of Poilievre's platform, some important parts of Poilievre's platform, to try and trick Canadians into thinking he's this centrist. He is not. He hasn't changed in just a few years since he published that book. He hasn't changed. He's cynical. He's a globalist. He is a self-proclaimed elitist globalist.
People will charge me as being elitist or a globalist, to use that term, which is, that's exactly, it happens to be exactly what we need.
He hasn't become a centrist. No, he's the same radical leftist, eco fanatic that he's always been. He's just lying. He's cynical. This is what the modern left does. They just lie because they have no real principles, don't really care. Mark Carney, although, you know what? Mark Carney does have, he is actually, I suppose you can say he has principles. He does want to destroy Canada. That's important to him, right? He's sticking with that. He's willing to lie to Canadians to get that done. Or, maybe more precisely, we should say he's willing to use Canada as his net zero laboratory, as his net zero sandbox. And he doesn't give a shit what happens to Canadians, but he's willing to pretend that he does. So they'll give him the opportunity to really, really wreck their lives. If they thought it was bad under Trudeau, just wait. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. Please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.